Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on, and this guest is a great one because I saw a presentation that she gave at an event called the Pitch Breakfast, and I was very impressed by what her company's doing, the progress that she's making, and just the way that she's thinking about her business. So I want to welcome to the show, Akshita Iyer. Welcome to the show, Akshita.
Thanks so much for having me, Terrell. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, before we jump into your business, Inirv, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about your background. So what was your background before starting this business?
Yeah, I went to Duke. My background's actually in neuroscience and consumer behavior. So I thought I'd go to med school, like many of my friends. Decided to just take a couple years off, worked at Duke Hospital, and I had a personal experience in that time that led me to really rethink, what our kitchens can do for us, and started Inirv because of it.
Awesome. Now, that is not a typical background you usually hear where someone's, I mean, to go from the study in neurology and wanting to go the medical path to then going into starting a business and entrepreneurship. So, I mean, can you help us understand, like, what was it like making that mental shift from medicine to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's crazy the twists and turns that life gives you. But really, when I had this personal experience, which I'll share when I talk about the business, I was just so much more excited about building something from the ground up that could affect and impact millions of people in a short amount of time. A lot of things in medicine take a long time to come to fruition, and I think obviously there's a lot of work to be done there. But I was just so passionate about this problem that we were solving, and was so much more excited than I ever was about going to medical school. And so it was actually a pretty easy mental shift. I just found something that I loved, dove in right away, did not, think twice about it, and never looked back. And so, fortunately, I had very supportive family members, very supportive friends, which made that whole process easier. But yeah, I never thought I'd be doing this.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I guess just to understand now, was going the medical route, was that something that was just kind of on your mind from like a young age, or was that something you kind of developed once you kind of got to college?
From a young age, I think it was the very stereotypical route for me, for any of my friends. Everyone either went into medicine or engineering, and I just thought that's a great way to impact people, and that's always what I wanted to do. But I never really thought about other ways you can do that. I don't have to be a medical professional to still impact people in the same way. I think there's a lot of business that goes into that too. And so, yeah, it was from a young age, but I just really never thought outside the box. I didn't think about anything else I could be interested in. I just picked a path and didn't ask any questions about it until, I took that time off after college, which was really, really helpful to just get some work experience and explore other things, because you never know what might pique your interest.
Okay, so now I think, myself and the rest of the audience are very interested in hearing a little bit more about your business because, I mean, that makes it even more of a, I guess you say, a compelling situation because it's like when you've
Yeah.
been, thinking about doing something from a young age, then to get to a pivotal point to change, directions, that's a very big thing. So tell us a little bit more about Innerve and just what that journey's been like.
Yeah, so I started Inirv, a few years ago when I was, working, and my mom was actually cooking in our house, got distracted, like many of us do, left the stove on, walked out, and started a kitchen fire.
Oh, wow.
And, my family I mean, we cook every meal at home. It's always been like that. I'm a big, foodie and love to cook, but I never really thought about the problems that exist in the kitchen. And, if you cook often, you've had those moments of panic where, you leave the house and you have to drive all the way home to make sure your stove is off, or even you get distracted for an extra 5 minutes and you overcook something. And that just was part of our, daily life. And when this happened, I, really thought, why is this still a problem, right? We have so much connectivity, so many connected devices in the rest of our homes, doorbells, door locks, thermostats that bring automation to almost everything we do. the kitchen is the place, arguably, in the home we use the most. It's the most personalized. So why can't we have that same technology in the kitchen without the need to buy a new appliance? So appliances last for decades. So building new ones just isn't the best approach. And new appliances, especially connected ones, are expensive. And so when this happened, I thought, what if we could build some really simple devices like there are in the rest of the home that can just work with your existing appliances, that are, super affordable, intuitive to use, easy to install, that could not only give you peace of mind, make sure you're cooking safely at home, but actually open opportunity for automation in the kitchen that could create a new way of cooking that's better, easier, faster, and ultimately saves you time, where you can still cook at home, get a great meal, and not have to worry about spending hours in the kitchen to do it.
Awesome, awesome. So tell us a little bit more about what that journey was like. I mean, just going from an idea to then building an actual business around the idea.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen all of a sudden. I think, when you condense the story, it's always like, you had this aha moment and then everything happened. Like it's a very long kind of process. And so, when when this happened, we were already, when I say we, my husband and I started the company together, we were already thinking a lot about problems in our lives. And that largely stemmed from our religious watching of Shark Tank. So we just, watch Shark Tank every night, and you just so many people trying to solve very real problems in the world, and people who have no entrepreneurial experience building great companies. And so we were already thinking about other things in our lives that we could solve for, and we came up with some very, some good, some bad ideas. But we were already thinking about it. And so when this happened, we thought, well, why can't we build something? Appliance manufacturers are not doing a great job of, bringing technology to the kitchen, and a startup can move much more faster. And so what if, we could build something at a fraction of the cost and fraction of the time? And so, my husband has an engineering background, and initially we were just playing around with the idea. We thought, what if we could just build, some kind of knob that's connected, just should be super simple. Let's try and build this and see, at least give something to my parents, because, they're getting older. I want them to continue to cook at home safely. So at the very least, we get something that my parents can use. And as we started to talk more and more to our friends and family, I was, pitching this thing to everyone, I could talk to, and we started to just see this huge market, not just around safety and peace of mind, but just how cumbersome it is to cook at home. And so that really got us thinking bigger about what this company could be. I had zero knowledge or understanding of what it meant to build a company, what it meant to raise funding, all of those things that go into a company that you don't really hear about. But I think because of that, ignorance, I didn't think twice. I was like, yeah, we can do this. And obstacle after obstacle, you just think, this is the last obstacle. Like I'll get through this, and I'll, and so I think that's, that's just kind of, the entrepreneurial journey. And so what we ended up building is, the first connected device that can turn any gas or electric stove into a smart appliance by just replacing their existing stove knobs with our smart knobs. So our smart knobs work exactly like your regular stove knobs, but they're Wi-Fi connected with built-in motors. So they can automatically adjust temperature based on different scenarios. Like if you do leave the stove on, we have an auto shut off feature that'll just automatically turn off the stove, send you notification. If you leave the house and you have that moment of panic, you don't have to drive all the way home. Just like you check your security camera, you can check our app. Make sure your stove is off, turn it off remotely if you need to. And then you can set simple cooking timers. If your hard-boiled eggs take 12 minutes, set that, and don't worry about getting distracted, for an extra 5 or 10 minutes and overcooking. And as we started to, test with consumers and really understand who our target demographic was, we just really saw an opportunity. And so, that transition, it took, probably a year before we realized, hey, this is something. Like either we do this now or someone else is going to do it. And so, it didn't happen overnight, but it was a process. And since then, it has not been easy. I think, anyone who understands hardware, especially consumer hardware, can attest to how difficult, that is, not only to raise funding, but to actually build product that works. And so, it's been an up and down ride so far, but I think if you are passionate about something and it serves a true need, then you can get through almost everything to bring something like this to life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, the use case for it is just huge. Because I think about even when my wife and I are cooking, yeah, there are a lot of times where it's like, hey, you forget something's on the stove or it cooks a little longer. So the use
Yep.
case is amazing for what you guys do.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned about the, that journey of raising capital. Have there been any big milestones in that journey of being able to present your story or any big experience that you've had there?
So fundraising has been difficult. As a first-time entrepreneur, again, building consumer hardware, a lot of people want to stay away from hardware because there's just so much, cost upfront, and a lot of hardware companies fail. And so it's been an ongoing fundraise process. When we first started, again, really had no idea, what it meant to raise money, the things that investors looked for. And so, I remember my first pitch was, I thought it was just going to be a couple people. It was an angel group, and there were 250 people.
Oh, wow.
And I remember walking into the room, and that was the first time, like I actually had to present. I mean, up until then it was just me, just talking with, potential customers, family, friends. And so that really opened my eyes to how important it is to be able to articulate your product, your problem, your solution, and where you're going with it. It has to be super, super clear, and that just takes time. And so, since then, I've just, pitched again to as many people as I could, got as much feedback as possible, and then just
Mhm.
synthesized all that feedback into what is now, the pitch. And I think that process was incredibly valuable because at this point, I know exactly, what our problem is, what need we're solving for, what our solution is, and how we can expand that into a company that is very valuable and meaningful. And so, we raised, some angel money before this year. Largely, we've bootstrapped, which is again really hard for hardware because you just have, so much cost going to physical goods. But we're now closing a $2 million seed round that will allow us to, finally deliver to all the people on our wait list, work with some partners, and it's definitely been a journey. It's not for the faint of heart. It's super, super difficult. But I think what's amazing is, if you push through all the no's, all the rejections, there
Mhm.
is someone out there, an investor out there who just gets it.
Yeah.
And over and over again, people would be questioning one thing or another, market size, is this really a problem? But then you just have those meetings with investors that are like, say no more, I get it. Now let's talk about what could stop you from building, something big. And
Mhm.
so it was just pushing through a lot of those no's to get to the right people. So every no I got was just in my mind one step closer to a yes. So yeah.
Awesome. And, I love what you said about just with that going through the round of, sharing the story, doing the pitches, and really becoming to that point of crystallizing, what's the problem that you're solving and how you're building a business. Because I do think sometimes people underestimate the work that it takes to really focus your message around what problem are you solving. Because that's when one thing that I've in listening to different pitches and from even helping companies actually develop what their pitch was going to be. That was one of those questions that I think people
Mhm.
typically underestimate. Like they're like, oh yeah, we got that figured out. But do you really know the answer to that question?
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's very, very easy to build technology that really doesn't address a pain point. I mean,
Mhm.
even if you have a problem, it's so easy to over engineer and build a solution that loses what that problem even is.
Yeah.
And so, we've definitely, tried to learn from, other smart home companies that have succeeded and failed, and really hone in on the problems that we're solving and just stick to that. Because at that point, especially for a consumer facing product, your customers will tell you what they need. But if you give them too much, then they just don't even know what to do with your product. And they lose sight of why they need it in the first place. And so I think really honing in and refining that problem statement can really impact, the kind of product you build and the kind of company you build.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, and people are interested in hearing the story more or just seeing what you guys are up to or buying the products, where can they find you online or on social media?
Yeah, so we do have a website. It's just inirv.com. You can reserve now, so we have a pretty big wait list. We're ramping up production, so we're trying to fulfill those, as quickly as we can. But then we also have social media pages. The handle is just Inirv Labs for all of them.
Perfect, perfect. Now, before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest that comes on is when you think about, your journey, the twists, the turns, the ups, the downs, the excitements, the disappointments as well. I mean, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, a lot of pieces of advice. But if you're asking me for two, I think the first one quote that I consistently live by, and in many ways is my motto, is if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. So don't wait for things to come to you. Go and build opportunities for yourself. And I think largely what I had to do, and tried and failed at it many, many times, is that I didn't have connections in the startup world, in the venture world. And so I had to find through like 7 degrees of separation, someone who knew someone who knew someone who could help me. And so consciously put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You'll grow from that and build your own luck. Because a lot of, success is just, trying and trying and trying. And when one route doesn't work, go find another one. So I think that's one thing. And then, I think the second would probably be, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be confident. I think confidence always trumps competence, for better or for worse. But, especially as an early stage or first time entrepreneur, like, be confident in what you're building. You are bringing value to the world. And it's so easy when you're trying to ask for money and you're trying to build, all of these, traction and data points to doubt a lot of, what it is that you're doing. But you started the company for a reason, and make sure that confidence comes through in a pitch, in, a sales meeting, anything, because if you have confidence, people will believe in you. Even if your idea, they don't relate with, they'll believe that you can bring something like this to life. So I think, building that confidence and building, the articulating in a way that gets that across is super, super important. And it really, in whatever you do, it's not just startups, it's, even in general life. So I think those would be the two things.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Akshita, thank you so much for coming on to share your story. Tell us a lot more about Inirv, and we'll definitely include some links so people can find you guys online, follow you on social media to see what you guys are up to. I'm very excited to hear that you guys are closing the round on getting the investment, because I think your product is great. I'm definitely going to talk to my wife, because we definitely need to add our names to the wait list.
Would love to have you.
So definitely thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Terrell.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.